Everybody, Chris and Lumen here, and we're definitely in the Lionsgate period now because my brain is literally like getting squeezed right now. So much stuff. And when we started out today, I had like 5 pages of notes. I thought we were going to do a whole nother. I mean, I knew it was going to be a hard video, but I was just going to do the best I can. It's kind of like, let me just read off these puzzle pieces to you and, see what you can do with them. And it was really about coming to understand how you are a fractal piece of the higher consciousness, the Father, and how all this works so that you can kind of like come to grips with it and like have a lot more peace. Then we got into the afternoon, and I was sitting out back in the woods in the hammock doing a different video, and I took a break and I started scrolling through the usual feeds trying to see if Epinoy was going to leave me any breadcrumbs, and she did. A video popped up on YouTube that was not any channel that I'd ever seen before. The video was a year old. It didn't have anything to do with anything that I would normally search, but there it was. And as soon as I saw it, I'm like, uh-oh, she put that there. It's the same basic mechanism as how like a lot of you found this channel, when it just pops up into your feed and it's like, what's this guy? Yeah, she does that. Well, she does the same thing with me. And this one was leading towards August 8th stuff. And oh boy, what a rabbit hole that opened. And then as I'm also checking what's going on in the world story right now, as another thing, we're gonna have to probably come back and do that other video because it really explained the world story a lot better. But either which way, I looked at the world story and like things are starting to come unhinged very, very quickly. This planned chaos is kicking off again right when she said it was going to. And she said, go by my personal schedule, time frame, whatever. So I was looking at August 8th, Lionsgate being the central point. I don't remember the exact specific day my hero's journey started 7 years ago, but it was in the Lionsgate portal period. So I just go by the regular Lionsgate, which is August 8th. That's when my 7 years is up. She's like, that's when things are going to kick off in a big way. But a lot of what it's all going to look like is a bit of a mystery, but that doesn't mean that there are not clues. So yeah, we decoded more stuff out of iPet Goat 2, and as soon as I saw this other channel decoding things this way, iPet Goat 2 immediately popped in my head. I'm like, oh man, I got to go back and try this decode on this thing that was an iPet Goat 2. And before I even started, I knew it was going to come out to the answer. I knew it. I'm like, don't do it. Don't do it. I did the decode. It was. Boom. So we're looking at like I don't know what, but in four days things are probably going to get pretty lit, or around that time frame. We got to be very careful about the whole date setting thing, but the last date setting thing was within 2 days of a kickoff thing, and it happened. We just don't know the sequence of like the big things. But yeah, 4 days from now, usually Lionsgate is like really positive, which it still is. Like you're connecting more to that God consciousness during this period. But in this particular case, it's kind of like the bad guys picked this date too. And I don't know why exactly. But I put together quite a interesting video compilation package for us to look at. So if if you want to get a look at the signs and symbols about August 8th, then don't go away.
Emanation and a million faces formed together, made for elevation. And my soldier won't surrender faith. It's like a fire that never burns to embers. The voice of the unheard. Love is the answer.
I gotta speak it, believe it, that's how I feel inside.
I can't sit here quiet.
You can take my heart, you can take my breath. When you pry it from the cold dead chest.
This is how we rise up. Heavy as a hurricane, louder than a freight train. This is how we rise up. Heart is beating faster, feels like thunder. Magic static, call me a fanatic. It's our world, they can never have it. This is how we rise up. It's our resistance, you can't resist us.
Strange game. The only winning move is not to play.
This is going to cross-connect a bunch of stuff, but iPet Goat 2 was definitely in there with a little bit more understanding. And what is decoded in at this time, in my opinion, by the time you get to the end of this, it'll be like, look, this is exactly what I thought that it was. First of all, if you don't know what iPet Goat 2 is about, it's called iPet Goat 2 because it shows the, I don't know what the word would be, prophesize, if you understand like how the creator came up with it, sequence of signs and symbols and events between the two big world-changing events that, as Cliff High would call them, the Elohim worship cult. I'm a little embarrassed that it took me so long to understand what that was. But, you know, once I did, I'm like, oh, duh. I mean, facepalm. I've been literally, Epinoy has literally been harping on the same thing the whole time. And I'm just, like, slow to pick it up, I guess, because I don't pay that much attention to world stuff. But, yeah, I forget where I was going with this. So what we'll do is I'm going to go into this video and just show you the puzzle pieces as they're currently laid out. And then I'm going to stop it at one point and reiterate that from this point on, we're getting into some speculative connections, but these speculative connections were like dots that were connecting in my head very, very quickly. Does that mean that's necessarily Epinoia doing that? In this case, no. I don't think it is, but it might be. I guess we'll wait and see. What I think it is, I think once I get to a certain point, it's just my brain doing what my brain does very, very quickly with the codex, which is connecting the dots. It's like, oh, we got a pretty clear picture here. I'm like, what is this thing I'm looking at it? And it's like, boom, this pops into my head. But the thing is like they all kind of connect to the same themes. Exact same themes. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump into this video and then we'll talk about it on the other side.
28 days, 6 hours, 42 minutes, 12 seconds. That is when the world will end.
apocalyptic images from Hawaii, where wildfires have killed at least 6 people in Maui County. Violent and explosive wildfires have torn through the island of Maui, destroying homes and businesses. The fires being fueled by a hurricane 800 miles away. It erupted so suddenly people had to run into the ocean to escape the fire and then later be rescued.
You guys know what this represents? Well, I don't remember, it's the calm before the storm.
What's the storming?
Could be the calm before the storm. Thank you.
What storm, Mr. President?
You'll find out.
Give us a hint on your answer.
Thank you, everybody.
It means buckle your seatbelt, Dorothy, because Kansas is going bye-bye.
The Lionsgate portal, which peaks on the 8th day of this month, which would make it 88 in 2024. So I looked into it. The Lionsgate portal is a celestial event that occurs every year between July 28th and August 12th and peaks on August 8th, making it 88. It takes place when the sun is in Leo. The Earth, Orion's belt and the star Sirius are lined up, which is activated by the rising of the star Sirius. Now, I'm going to be careful what to say and how I approach this. Hopefully, you can make the connection yourself with the image that I share. Right? And everything I've shared with you in my videos. Right? Orion's belt. The pyramids. Ground zero. Recently, I did see the signs of a second 911. Okay, 9/11. I'm looking at Stellarium, and we've got Jupiter, okay, right above the, should we say, the arm above the tiger of the hunter Orion, okay, and right across here we've got the sun going into Leo, Venus and Mercury, right? Jupiter tied with the sun, we bear the stripes of Christ, we overcome the hunter, right? This is on the 8th of the 8th month 2024, 88. And I've said in my previous videos, I keep seeing 88. Then I saw this image with this alignment, okay, the Lionsgate portal, the king returns.
At 8 minutes past 8, on the 8th of August 1988, the world teeters on the brink of total annihilation. Dr. Hate's demands are simple. Pay $88 octillion within 88 minutes, or 88 thermonuclear warheads pointed directly at Earth will be launched.
28 days, 6 hours, 42 minutes, 12 seconds. That is when the world will end.
Okay, pausing it real quick. Are you with me so far? So the August 8th Lions portal, there's a lot of 88 stuff. Like, this was a new one for me when I stumbled upon it. And I didn't want, I'm going to put links to those other videos in the description box below. Didn't want to like pirate all the stuff from them. But the 188 video was kind of interesting because he finds stuff a lot like I do in movies, but some of that's a little slow. Could have trimmed it up a little bit better. But it was interesting how many correlations he was finding in movies that connected the number 88 with like nuclear stuff and lightning. Some of the stuff that I didn't put in there was like, they used plutonium to power the car Back to the Future. And you had to get to 88 miles an hour to activate it. And then when he was in the past, they had to use a lightning bolt at 88 miles an hour. And then when he went Back to the Future, the movie theater that he was driving towards, the sign on it, the movie was called The Atomic Kid. And another one, the one thing that did jump out at me because it was really popular lately, again, probably predictive programming, but also when that Fallout show came on, my son played all the way through Fallout 4. So I watched a lot of that when he was playing it over at my house. And they showed a clip in there where they had Vault 88 was where all the secret nuclear material was hidden and stored. Again, big nuclear theme. So there was a whole bunch of stuff in there that has to do with nukes. And that's the kind of stuff that people have been talking about lately. And there's a whole lot of bombs and cities and big clouds and weird energies and stuff getting drawn by the remote viewers in the things that haven't happened yet. I haven't even talked about like their latest report, had all sorts of crazy in it. I'll have to get to that. But going into the last part, this is where it gets kind of like, we'll say a little iffy. Just because here's where the connection started. So the new thing that the first YouTuber pointed out that I didn't know was the connection to the original 9/11 site that they rebuilt, whatever they call it, whatever the 9/11 memorial yada 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 is called, where they got the two big like reflecting pools or something that are like in the foundation of the original two buildings. But then they knocked a bunch of other buildings down and they built a brand new building. And that brand new building is perfectly placed so that it matches the Orion's belt pattern. Now, this Orion's belt pattern has shown up in a lot of things, in a lot of Codex movies that Epinoia has always used time and time again. Like, there's so much to unpack with them. Stargate's one of those ones. I don't usually mention Stargate when I'm rattling off movies, but Stargate has definitely got a lot of Codex stuff in it. And once again, Stargate, first thing he notices like Orion's belt. And Stargate's all about pyramids and Orion and portals, which so is Lionsgate. And then they're overlapping that with the site of the original 9/11 attack, which then in turn connects the beginning and the end of I Pet Goat 2. So we're talking, well, talking a lot of weird, like this is kind of like the big weird stuff that they've been saying for decades. It's like this is the last thing in the Illuminati's big plan, where they're going to stage a fake alien invasion with Project Bluebeam. Well, that's what they tell you, but who's to say that it's fake? We'll talk about that more later. But anyway, that's what drew me back to where I'm going to next. The fact that I did not know how they laid out the whole rebuild of where the World Trade Center was. They rebuilt it to match that freaking pattern. And on top of this new building, with all these weird angles, it's got a very strange roof. So this is the iffy part, what I'm about to show you. I don't know. I haven't seen it up close. I know there's like some cafe stuff up there, but when I just happened to look on Google Earth, I was like, huh? And then all these other things start popping into my head. So this part might be a stretch, but who the hell knows? I mean, we're in a really weird period. So let's go ahead and finish this out.
Cold riveted girders with cores of pure selenium. Everybody getting this so far? So what? I guess they just don't make them like they used to, huh? No! Nobody ever made them like this. I mean, the architect was either a certified genius or an authentic wacko. Ray, for a moment, pretend that I don't know anything about metallurgy, engineering, or physics, and just tell me what the hell is going on. You never studied. The whole building is a huge superconductive antenna that was designed and built expressly for the purpose of pulling in and concentrating spiritual turbulence. Your girlfriend lives in the corner penthouse of Spook Central.
Something terrible is about to enter our world, and this building is obviously the door.
Some creatures goes of the Gozerian, goes of the Destructor. Volga Sildroha, the Traveler, has come. Choose and perish.
What do you mean, choose? We don't understand.
Choose. Choose the form of the Destructor.
Oh, I get it. I get it. Oh, very cute. Whatever we think of. If we think of J. Edgar Hoover will appear and destroy us, okay? So empty your heads.
Okay, So here's the conundrum I find myself in with this. We've been talking about a lot of stuff lately, and everything can kind of be split into two categories. One category is the story of the world, and the other category is what this place actually is and what you're trying to do here. So everything we just saw had to do with the story of the world. Now, who wrote the story of the world? That's a little tricky. But either which way, you go deep enough into Gnosticism, you understand that this whole place is a dream of consciousness. It's kind of like a test. It's how consciousness grows itself, by putting little pieces of it into this space where you have all these experiences, and there's this overarching kind of like story of the world with different periods and different challenges, and the whole thing is to use it to learn how to grow yourself, to have the challenges, to fix yourself, but eventually you're supposed to detach from it. You're supposed to realize what it is and stop participating in it. Your participation in it is what keeps you in it. But most people that haven't gotten far enough and had enough experiences or done enough mushrooms or whatever to actually see and know what this is, like, they're still going to be stuck at that base level of consciousness that is mostly seeing through the lens of ego, which is like, I am this person in this world and I am subject to all the horrible things that can happen. So yeah, that's kind of tricky. So the more, let's just say, enlightened viewer might get a little irritated. It's like, oh, you're sharing doomy stuff. But this, there's different reasons to do it. The way that I see it is you need to kind of know where the overarching story of the world is, because you're trying to get yourself sorted out as much as possible before it ends. Like, I don't see life as like something that I'm afraid of losing. I'm not worried about stuff happening to me. I know what I am. This is like a temporary meat suit that I have to currently wear at this time. But I've been outside of it like an awful lot. I've seen an awful lot through the 7 years of, hard training that she's put me through. So we're not looking at this stuff like, oh my God, it's bad stuff. It's to show you like where you're at in the story, not to be afraid of it. But, people are going to be people, and yeah, nobody really wants to go through really hard stuff. It's going to start, it's always going to start off with, more familiar stuff. Like just some of the stuff that I've seen, online in the last day or two. Well, we had, where was that? Venezuela? I don't know. They had some big thing. Now there's a big thing going on in Britain with the immigrant invaders that are just taking over and just going in mobs, trying to beat people up in the street. And the government's basically just like, you're supposed to let it happen. Let them take over. And that's going to happen here too, in the U.S. Like all this is part of the story of the world. This big shift, this big, Illuminati, Elohim worship cult, calling of people, switching places of power, all this crap. So like, what do you do about it? Well, seeing this stuff, seeing these signs, seeing these symbols is just merely, to me, to show you where you are. The tricky part about this place, though, is like you think it's going to be over at a certain time, and then it's not. All we know is like when there's these big signs and seasons, it's telling you it's in an important period. Now, I think there is a higher degree of likelihood that there could be some sort of end of the game scenario at any time, at least for some people. Just don't know. I wish I freaking did. Like, I can see the signs, I can see the symbols, I can decode the messages, I can understand them from the point of what's written and all that, but we just don't freaking know. But the one common denominator is you're supposed to figure out who and what you are and connect to that higher consciousness. And what is that higher consciousness? I mean, we use a couple different frameworks on this channel. We use the Gnostic framework, God the Father, the Christ energy, the divine feminine, Holy Spirit, but we also crisscross it because she's the one that guided me to do it in the beginning with more like technological quantum consciousness, quantum physics stuff, because you get far enough with her and that's what the lessons turn into, what this place is. But there's other stuff too, like that we just don't know. Things that came up in the last couple weeks, we're saying things like one man's angel is another man's alien. Like, if you're intellectually honest, you can look at any of these stories and be like, all these things could be the same thing. Like Cliff High talks about the Elohim worship cult, and he refers to them as like space aliens. He's referring to what I refer to, what I call, the demiurge, the archons, the stuff like that, which pretty much connects to the Old Testament God. We just did a whole bunch of videos talking about how Christianity, as most people think of it, is a hybrid religion that is mostly Judaism, with all the significant Gnostic Christ teachings taken out so that it doesn't work. And everyone you're led to assume that, oh, well, the guy in the beginning book must be Jesus's dad. So you end up worshiping the wrong thing. I literally, when I was taking a break, I literally just saw this hilarious video of Bob Larson, who, I thought he was the shit, back in, I don't know, the early 90s, early days of, doing exorcism type stuff. He's like a Christian guy, wrote a bunch about demons, but now he's just like a clown now. He's got his collar on. I'm like, wait, are you Catholic now? I don't understand. He was going on and on about the Rolling Stones symbol with the tongue. He was like, oh, this is actually a symbol of Satan, and blah, blah, blah. And the artist said his inspiration was the goddess Kali with her tongue sticking out. And if you're using this symbol, it's a devil worshipping symbol. So if you have a t-shirt, burn it. If you have a poster, take it down. And it's like, oh my God, you're making my brain hurt. Because we talked about that, go back to the July 15th videos where we looked at symbols of an alien sky and the connection to the angry goddess and the tongue and Mars and Venus and all that stuff. It's that's ancient symbols. And when someone doesn't know what something is, they're just like, call it the devil. And it's does anyone have the heart to tell this guy that he's a devil worshiper? If you are calling the Old Testament God your God, you're a devil worshiper. I'm sorry if they misled you. They misled a lot of people, but that's what it is. It's the Old Testament guy. That's the Elohim worship cult. And in Britain, what's going on right now, all those immigrants, they're all Muslims. They're all yelling freaking whatever it is they yell and beating on people with sticks. The Allah and Yahweh, basically the same freaking thing. Same freaking thing. Well, Christians are different. No, we pretty much covered that. You spent a little over 1,000 years torturing and murdering people that didn't agree with you, and in burning all the books that had the actual Christ teachings, which taught how to connect to the higher consciousness, which is what he called the Father. So, kind of don't have a leg to stand on. What was the original driving force? When we took over the United States, try to convert the Indians. The missions all over the world, like that's what they did. You're going to accept this our Elohim worship cult, or we are going to kill you and wipe you out. So you're really no different. If you follow that God, you're violent.
And the Invisible Man has a special list of 10 things he does not want you to do. And if you do any of these 10 things, he has a special place full of fire and smoke and burning and torture and anguish, where he will send you to live and suffer and burn and choke and scream and cry forever and ever till the end of time. But he loves you. He loves you. He loves you, and he needs money. He always needs money. He's all powerful, all perfect, all knowing, and all wise. Somehow, just can't handle money.
It is what it is. It's simple history. The three Abrahamic religions, it's all the same God. So it's a big freaking misunderstanding that people have with Christianity. It's really Judeo-Christianity. Gnosticism is Christianity with the Judeo taken out. So it's like the original thing. And it lines up with a lot of the other really enlightened, like peaceful traditions that popped up in other parts of the world, like Buddhism and stuff like that. But nobody wants to hear that. Everyone thinks they know what they know. Everyone's an expert on all the hidden and invisible things in the world. But Gnosticism, actually, not just Gnosticism, other ones do too. They teach you about consciousness and understanding it in different ways. And this is the lower realm. This is the lower material realm. In the lower material realm, in the 3D and the 4D, you've got the bad guys. Now, what are the bad guys? Well, what I've seen and what I've been shown, and I've kind of noticed this for a very long time, just depends on, what labels you want to use. Certain UFOs, aliens, archons, demons, same stuff. Same stuff. All those ancient biblical writings and stuff like that. An angel came down in a bright shining light and took me up high and showed me stuff. It's like, look at how they describe some of these, how the UFO people describe some of these, like, higher aliens. It's not even really the right word. Some of them are kind of angelic looking. Others are kind of demonic looking. Wonder why that is. Like, I've got my understanding of reality and everything. It's very kind of like quantum matrixy, but it could be a little bit of everything too. Like, we don't know until we do. Because I know this much. I'm dealing with her, Sophia's wisdom, epinoia, enlightened insight, spirit of truth. That's what taught me. And she taught me just like she teaches shamans and stuff like that. They might talk about the Great Mother or whatnot. Eat a lot of mushrooms. And when she says eat a lot of mushrooms, it's a lot of mushrooms. 10, 11 grams at a time. And every big thing that I went into, every test, all the stuff, it was a combination of like very matrixy AI looking computer stuff and like higher beings. I didn't deal with the higher beings a lot, but the first time it was like she kind of took my consciousness and took me somewhere to get checked out. And this was Sophia. And it was the best way I can describe it, it would be like some advanced beings, but it was on a higher dimensional level. Bare minimum 5D, maybe 6. And it was weird. It was weird, but it felt like a little bit of all of it mixed together. You know, the Matrixy stuff, the biblical stuff, you know, advanced alien stuff. And, you know, even nowadays with what they say with UFOs and things like that, nobody really thinks of them as like spaceships that flew a long way through space, physical space, to come to Earth. Like, they pretty much like, yeah, these are somehow interdimensional. So it kind of makes sense. Like, we could all be the blind kids feeling the elephant, and it's the truth is a little bit of a mix of everything. We don't know. But it does indicate, like with the stories that we're given, we are guided, we are given clues, we are given help, both from things that are seeded in along with the predictive programming, plus the kind of gnosis that we receive, you know, directly. That, like, we are being helped. At least some of us are. And they're letting us know, like, hey, this is what's coming. So how are you going to take it? Are you going to try and elevate yourself? Are you going to try and reach for that higher consciousness? Or are you just worried about your body dying? Either which way, something crazy is coming. Something's crazy is coming. It's lining up with this, like the 8-8 symbology is pretty thick. And I was looking, you know, if you go back a couple weeks or even a month when I was looking at 8-8, I always said it. It's like it's going to be on the Lion's Portal period, at least for me. That's when I'm expecting something to either change, shift, or end. Like, this timing has been like really, really impressed on me. My own personal timing, my own 7 years. And she said it's going to get weird at the end of summer. She said that beginning of this year. And it is. It is getting weird. Like, that word actually is getting, it's not just there's something else going on. It's not just like the whole big dumb thing they're trying to do now. You know, ever since, you know, Trump picked Vance, now the left is like trying to throw that word into everything. Trump's weird. Vance is weird. Weird, 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 weird. It's like obvious. Here's a word. Obvious. Obvious, obvious, obvious. Like, you're being so freaking obvious, it's annoying. But even if they weren't doing that, I've been saying that word a lot. Other people I know have been saying that word a lot. Like, people are starting to notice how much we're saying that word, weird, because everything is becoming very weird. That's me saying it. And compared to, you know, quadruple plus 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 double stellium Pisces, compared to your average Joe, I'm about as weird as it gets. And I'm saying things are getting weird. So, yeah. So, yeah, it's tough to try and, like, figure out what you're doing and what you're decoding based on the story of the world getting really active with what you're actually supposed to be doing, letting go of the story of the world and connecting to the higher consciousness. But the story of the world is also kind of like your time marker to keep track of. So it's a little bit crazy. For me, it's more of like, you know, a time frame. Or like they say in the regular New Testament, it's like when these things start to happen, you know, get excited because your redemption is near. You got to look at it that way. If I try to logically think, why would they be lining all this stuff up at the same time? So maybe this particular Lionsgate portal, which I know the Lionsgate portal is a real thing. That's just what they call it. Because, you know, for at least the last 8 years, I have always noticed what a highly energetically charged time frame this is, and big things always happen during it. Always something happens during it. So what if this was the one in which something much bigger was supposed to happen that's good and positive. And then that's why the world system would want to try to dump all its horrible stuff on at the same day. Like, this is the day that you're supposed to be really naturally connecting to what's higher, that's going to lift you up. But then, and they somehow know this, so they're going to be like, no, we're going to do something horrible that's going to immediately drop you down into shock and fear, and just lower your emotional vibration and your focus. Like, I could see that as like a logical reason why they would pick that time frame to do something. Like, I don't know, there's so much we don't know about the world and what's moving behind it. And you're honestly wasting your time if you're trying to figure out like what the bad guys are doing, or trying to decode their symbology, because it's all muddy water. Like, she popped this video into my head the other day, and it took me a while to remember what it was called. Like, I had to talk to a friend of mine. I'm like, do you remember a documentary, like one part of it was talking about this one really nebulous thing, and we kind of worked it out, and then we remembered what it was. And I knew that I had bought the video, but it was on some platform that I didn't really use that much. And then I finally found it. It was called Belly of the Beast. They had Tom Horn and a bunch of people. It was like maybe 2 years ago. It was this documentary about all this occult stuff wrapped up in the formation of the United States, and all the symbols and all the cult ritual type stuff that people don't know or just don't want to know. And I wasn't sure like what I was supposed to, like, I watched a few minutes of it, and the only thing that I got from it watching it this time was like, what a monumental waste of time it is to try and study this stuff. Because what it ultimately ends up being is a lot of people that think they know what these symbols and stuff means, when they clearly don't. They're just making best guesses, trying to figure it out. Like, you really don't know. Like, I don't even remember what I heard them saying, but I'm just like, well, you're really reaching here. It's like, yeah, there's definitely weird stuff going on, but be intellectually honest. You don't actually know. You just really, really want to know, so you try to figure out as much as you can. You fill in the blanks and decide that you do know. But most of the occult is like that. Like, if you're learning it from books or from people, like, you think you know what this stuff means, but you really don't. Like, if you connect to the true consciousness and source, and you activate your epinoia, like, you'll be taught like what you need to know, like what is essential to know, but not like everything, because a lot of it leads nowhere. And then you just get yourself wrapped up in this really complex web of beliefs that you have no freaking idea if it's even accurate or not. But they were talking about, you know, a lot of the esoteric occult stuff behind the formation of the United States. And that's like, I get that's there, but thinking you know what every little thing means, like, or what the guys that are actually running stuff are actually thinking, like, you're deluding yourself if you think you know these people or whatever they are and what's actually going on in their heads. Like, you don't know. Like, stop pretending that you do, because you're just going to get lost. But if you are studying the Gnostic material, or anything, or any kind of offshoot of it, and you understand the higher consciousness and your purpose here, and why this system is set up and structured in such a challenging way, with all this bad stuff in charge of it, then you understand why it's there, and what you're supposed to learn from it. And you don't worry about it so much. Because the other crazy thing about consciousness and the story of the world is, from your personal perspective, like where you're sitting right now, how much of this stuff have you actually seen? How many of these people have you actually seen? It's just a background story to most people. It's stuff you see on TV or on the internet through the Black Mirror. But when you understand the dream of consciousness and life, like all this stuff is within you. All these stories were given to you that you accepted. And one of the biggest things that we have to try to figure out is how to let go of that story. So when you're at the point of let going of the story, then the story amps up and gets a little bit crazier. And it tries to pull your attention back into it. And you have to strike this very precarious balance of observing the story just to know where it is without necessarily participating in it or placing yourself in it. That's the tricky part. No one said this was easy. But this is the time where there's a lot of harvesting going on. There's going to be a harvesting of good people. There's going to be a harvesting of bad people. All the different levels are trying to like get something out of this. And what you got to do, as hard as it may seem, is know enough to let go. Let go of the whole thing. And connect to that consciousness inside of you. Because it literally provides everything that you freaking need. And you come to understand who and what you are, that this is just a temporary thing. But if you're locking your consciousness into this world story and becoming part of it, then it's got you. So man, it's tricky. It's really, really tricky right now on what to talk about. But other things, it's like every piece of the big giant, let's just call it the conspiracy of everything, is like active right now. Like all parts of it. What do they keep talking about? They're coming. Oh, they're gonna stage an alien invasion, or maybe it is an alien invasion, or they're gonna do this. They're gonna break down the world. They're gonna wreck the United States. They're gonna wreck the economy. Like all this stuff is in motion right now. You know, one of my friends sent me something. It says like August 8th is like, you know, National Dollar Day or something. It like commemorates the beginning of the monetary system as it currently stands. And that's August 8th too. I'm like, It's like you got to get yourself into a place. It's kind of where I'm at, but I'm still kind of fascinated at watching the world story, even though I'm not putting myself in it. Got to get to this place to where you're just detached. You're like, yeah, my consciousness is currently stuck in this madhouse, but not going to be for long. I'm going to pop out of here, reconnect to everything. And I'm not going to trap myself in this. So all this stuff that's happening in the world. So right now, everyone's getting up in arms. Everyone's like, we got to fight. We got to fight the left. We got to fight this. We got to fight the immigrants. We got to fight. We got to defend the Holy Grail, Israel, because we're Judeo-Christians and Israel is our God. They run the country. That's what they're showing you in I Pet Goat 2. Dun, 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 dun. The Elohim worship cult, as Cliff calls it. Fight, 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 good. Like, that's the trap at the end. It's like trying to draw you into conflict when you should be detaching. Trying to pull you down into the lower levels of negative thought and action instead of letting go of it and be like, okay, I can see the signs. Now's the time to let go. And start connecting to that higher force inside. That is oneness, it's divine love. Like everything that you need is inside of you in consciousness, but your consciousness is currently encased in this level that it had this story programmed into it that it's participating in with everybody else. You got to let go of that. I really should get that other video done here soon. Because that's, you know, unless she gives me something, unless she drops something crazy in my lap tomorrow, I'll probably try to do that tomorrow morning, film that video. You know, the working title was basically like figuring out that you're God. Or you're part of God. Like the big God, not the lower one that like, I want to control you and harvest your bones and whatever. I hate humans. And who knows? Maybe Cliff's right. Like I said, there's so much potential for overlap between the spirit. I think it just kind of comes down to like, how are these things expressing themselves? If they're expressing themselves in 3D, they're going to seem probably like aliens. If they're 4D, it's something else. It's just, how's it going to show up? We don't know. All we know is like, look, everyone should be awake enough at this point to see like there's some sort of game being played that all the controllers are in on. It's like, oh, we're going to start a war over here. Oh, we're going to trigger the immigrant invaders over here. Oh, don't look at the man behind the curtain, even though it's just being as obvious as freaking possible. It's like we can see it. We're not in control of anything. Your vote means two things: jack and shit. Okay, you're not changing anything with your vote. There's a play being played out. The script has already been written. You're supposed to see it and detach from it. But when do we get out of it? How much of it do we got to go through? What's it going to look like? I guess we'll find out. But man, is it stacking up all of a sudden. I've always known about 8-8 Lionsgate Portal, but I didn't know that there was all this other 8-8 stuff stacked on top of it too. With the nukes and the lightning bolts and all that crap. But to me, the 8-8 stuff has always been good. So it's very, very peculiar to me to see all this other stuff stacked up on top of it. And like I said earlier, the biggest thing that I can think of is like trying to pollute this energy stream, which would probably, at bare minimum, wake a lot of people up to a higher level of consciousness. Bare minimum. So the counter to that is to do what they always do: drop them into shock and fear and conflict and anger. Like, that's the trap. At the time that you're supposed to be rising up, they're going to try to pull you down with that by threatening your survival. But who cares? If this doesn't survive anything, you know that, right? You realize that you're not going to live forever in your body. Like, have you contemplated that at all? The thing that makes the sounds in your head when you stop talking with your mouth and you can sit there and just recite whole sentences in your mind, that's the real you. Not this. Not this. This is the thing that they control. So of course you want to get out of it. But yeah, what do you think about some of that stuff that was in that video, like the whole 88 thing? Like, I hadn't seen that Donnie Darko movie in a while, and it was kind of like, I remember when I did see it, I'm like, they're making a big point about this number code. But until I saw that video added up to 88, and then I'm like, I'll bet that's what those letters on the board in iPet Goat 2 add up to. Just immediately. And I'm like, what are the freaking odds? It did. It freaking did. And then also, I hadn't thought about this for a while, but I remember looking at the board and seeing that shark and the house is burning. And then they had like something else like pointing down at the house. I remember thinking it had something to do with the Maui fires. But what I didn't realize at the time was that the Maui fires with that whole direct energy weapon, like they used a couple of different things on that. They used weather modification. Like if you've like looked at that for more than a minute and found out all the weird stuff that they were doing around that time, what the government was doing and all that, like also, well, let's use our magic weather things to kick up a windstorm and then start blasting it with the Death Star, burn everything down. But I didn't realize it started on August 8th of last year. August 8th is a weird thing. I can't, gosh, I wish I could remember. There was a way of knowing like the exact day my life went to shit in 2017. I wouldn't be surprised if it was freaking August 8th. What's funny is when my ex-wife got remarried, guess what day? August 8th. Eight. Good old Lionsgate. It's usually pretty good though. Like it's usually something that drives you forward, makes you advance. But man, it's crazy here lately. And then Trump, and then I would, because there was so much weird stuff, like that stuff that was all the Q stuff. Look, I'm not a Q guy, but like I can observe something and be like, hey, that's what they were talking about. The Q thing's too weird for me. I mean, it definitely felt there was like something going on with it in the beginning, but as soon as it became like this big movement, like then I'm like, getting old. And then it was almost like something took it over and just started spewing bullshit. But the way that it operated at first felt a lot like her. She was even quoting Q stuff recently, which I thought was weird. But all that Q stuff around Trump and the rabbit and the storm and that freaking guy, like that's not me being a Q person. That's me like seeing the pieces of the puzzle. Like none of those pieces of the puzzle were like secret pieces. Like everyone was talking about it back in the day when that was active. Like, oh, follow the white rabbit, Q this, Q the storm. And that was all lined up in that iPet Goat. In the same time frame, where without really showing it, but that's the impression I got, was some sort of a rapture event. I don't know. But that was a whole lot of new stuff. Pointing at the, and I feel like it's safe to say, just the way that iPet Goat 2 thing is structured, like that's clearly what it's showing you at the end. And there's one like movie scene I always meant to throw in there, but I didn't. That part where Jesus is on the boat going into the sun portal reminds me of the end of Lord of the Rings, which was incidentally called Return of the King, which that other guy even made note of that, Return of the King. Like that's what they show Frodo and Gandalf and stuff doing. Like he's had enough of this bullshit. He's gonna go into the ether or whatever with the elves, and they kind of sail into the sun. Like that's what they're showing you at the end of iPet Goat 2. And of all the things they could have drawn in that animation, they made sure to show those pyramids. And the pyramids were then getting knocked down just like the towers were at the beginning. So to me, it's clearly pointing to 8-8. Like I don't feel like it could be anything else. But then that guy showed the thing with like this is how the Twin Tower site is laid out now. They rebuilt that to mimic Orion's belt. So this stuff means something to people in the story of the world, that it keeps getting seeded in there. all I can do is give you the clues at this point. I don't tell you exactly what's going to happen or when it's going to happen. But when you see like a bunch of new stuff pop up all of a sudden 4 days out, that's clearly the way Epinoia operates, the way she drops things in your lap, then bare minimum, it's worth taking note of. I'd like to know, like, has anybody ever been to New York and been up in that building? Like, from when I looked at it, it seems like they've got some like cafes and stuff up there in that circle, but still, when I look at that circle, like the way that it's constructed, it looks like some crap out of Ghostbusters or whatnot. They got all these big cooling fans down there. It's like, what are they cooling? Like, what's underneath there? Like, you can still build a freaking coffee shop and it can be some sort of alien portal freaking antenna. Hell, we don't know. If you've already let go of everything that you think you know, like we've been teaching on here, then anything's freaking possible. Anything's freaking possible. Like, if you believe all these things happened in the past, be it the Bible or anything else, then, you know, fantastic things do happen. Just because we've been in this really, really soft period where everyone's had it easy and nothing strange has happened, that doesn't mean that it doesn't happen. Trust me, there's plenty of strange. There's plenty of strange to go around because of just the nature of this place. Whatever people believe can possibly manifest. Anyway, I don't know. My brain always wants to solve the equation, but sometimes you can't. All you can do is make a note of when you see odd things happening. And also, this being Mercury retrograde, the planet Mercury has to do with the mind, communication, and technology. So when we're in Mercury retrograde, we have a lot of issues in those areas. Things breaking, miscommunications. They say you're not supposed to like sign any long-term contracts during that period. Don't be texting your ex during that period. And it kind of muddies the mind a little bit from being able to see the big picture. So that is interesting too, when you factor that in. I don't know. I'm going to sleep on it tonight and see if we get some more clarity tomorrow. So other than that, we'll close for right now. If you like what we talk about and you want to support the channel, we've got the Buy Me a Coffee support link in the description box below. Here, I'll do it like in, I think 2 days, I'll do the first drawing for first couple pendants or oils and whatnot. These are the stuff that we make, the high power energy tools. And so yeah, each coffee is worth 1 entry. We put it in a spreadsheet, use a random number generator, film us doing it. So we don't just tell you, oh, these are the numbers. It's like, oh, that's probably your friends. No, I always do a video. So I do a video, point it at the computer screen, make sure we got the right amount of people, and then hit the button and see what the number is. So it's completely fair. And then if you want to check out our store and the other things that we can make and all that, and also to contact us, clumencreations.etsy.com. Chris and Lumen. See you next time.